Are we rolling? Are we
We're,
recording? Oh
yes.
well, hello there. Welcome to this 100th edition of Three Black Pratt Grads. I'm Greg Claiborne. This is my bud Ken Nelson and Marc Skinner. We are all graduates of Pratt Institute's Fine Art Photography program in Brooklyn campus, Brooklyn, New York, and we are photography professionals. We've had varying levels of experience, varying levels, yeah, all kinds of wide range of experience in photography, commercial, and fine art, and otherwise. And we get together and we enjoy photography. We love photography, and we enjoy talking about photography. And this is our 100th episode. Go check out our previous episodes. You can hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you get notifications when another episode is coming out. This is actually a good time that you're joining us. We're about to do a format change. We're going to bring in some other photographic professionals and people in the arts and have a wider discussion on photography. And not exactly sure what it's going to look like, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, more interactive. And we're going to grow our viewing and listening base and in podcast and vlog format so that we can, get more involved in photography as it progressively changes. Um, all right. Today's topic. You guys got anything to say? I'm just yakety yakking over here.
Nope. Go ahead. Keep
No.
going.
Okay. All right.
Right ahead.
Um, I just wanted to say that today's topic we're going to talk about. We have oh boy, you should see the discussions we have offline. Some of those should be recorded. We had a discussion about uh, who's telling our story. Black stories, and there was the side of the story was well, I mean, in America, whose story is it exclusive to one person? Is this someone's story that they can hold on to and it's exclusively theirs, which is, a valid point. And I hope we get to do more of that, so because there's a lot of celebrities being photographed in high profile established magazines, and they have non-black photographers shooting them. And the question came up, should there be an opportunity for young black photographers to photograph them? And it's a conversation that we're going to continue to have, I'm certain. And hopefully we'll be able to bring other people into the conversation to get some answers and hopefully raise more topics for discussion. Um, but okay, moving right along. Our discussion today is uh, just visual storytelling. The power of photography to be able to um, not just capture an image, but to let the viewer in and tell a story through, um, could be photojournalism, or it could be outright, or it could just be in capturing an image. The image demands, knowing what the story was about. So first up, we got Mr. Nelson. What have you got for us, Ken?
Okay. Telling stories. Well, the quandary always is I'm really hard on myself in terms of whether I'm telling a story or not with an image because I'm just so intimately involved with an image. Sometimes I forget that other people have to try and interpret what I'm seeing, or if in fact I do have a story. So I'll start with this particular image because I wanted to just share in three quick ones and just to get an idea of storytelling. And sometimes I wonder if I am telling a story, if a photograph can tell a story, because I'm again, like I said, I'm so intimately involved that sometimes I don't know if a story is being told or if it's just a photograph in and of itself, and that's about it you know. So I can leave that open for discussion as to whether you guys agree or what your input on that particular aspect of photography is, whether an image can tell a story or an image doesn't necessarily tell a story, or what is the deciding factor that makes a single image tell a story versus what what factors make it not tell a story.
Hmm. Well, I'm kind of partial. I really enjoy your Subway series images, and they're all different. I love the way that they're so, even though they're stills, they're frozen in the frame. they're so animated, that it's like it's real, it's surreal, it's dark. There's a lot going on, but for me, it captures, city life in a moment, in an instant that it's fleeting, but the way you've captured it, it's storytelling to me, because I've been out of the city for so long. This is kind of making me, um, kind of nostalgic for the city again. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't think you can capture, I won't say almost any image in the city, but the images that you capture, for me, they tell a story, and I like the story that it's telling. It's dark. There's a lot going on. There's just so much you could spend a lot of time, critiquing it, or just immersing yourself in the image itself. So
Yeah,
without me babbling on, I'll
yeah,
I'll I'll turn over the floor.
I,
I reserve my time.
I think for me, one of the things that really shines through is how choreographed the rush hour commute seems to be. I don't know if this is rush hour or not, but it looks like what I would imagine rush hour to be. If I didn't know it was, there would be many more people than that usually. But everyone looks like they're supposed to be exactly where they. And what's interesting is that this is the result of the thought processes of each individual in this photograph rather than one director telling everyone what to be. And it's fascinating to see how well spaced everyone is. There aren't any collisions that are evident. Everyone has their own direction, and somehow they're just not colliding. And they seem like when they're crossing paths in this way, that there would be nothing but collisions.
yeah, yeah.
It
And
kind of
that
reminds
is
me of like a chaotic Abbey Road. If
it.
the
It
Beatles were walking through New York subway, this is what it would look.
Yeah, and it's really about, for me, it's always the focus of the chaos, the chaotic nature of just interplay of humanity as they go about their business. And this is rush hour. It's the PM rush hour at Grand Central Station. This is the mezzanine above the number 4, 5, and 6 train, and this is just outside of the subway turnstiles. So this is between coming where you come from the Grand Central Terminal with the Metro North trains, and you transition to the underground subway. So
Why is it
people,
so dark?
it is.
Yeah, I was for Grand Central. Not You threw me for a loop when you said Grand Central, because Grand Central is always so well lit.
This is the subway portion of Grand Central. This is not the terminal.
Okay.
So and it was renovated. So the floor, they've lowered the ceiling, and they painted
Oh.
it black.
Oh
So
wow.
So yeah, so it's dark. It's darker than it used to be, but it's always been dark even before this. So it just wasn't ever this dark because the ceiling's now painted black.
Okay.
So, all right, I'm going to move on to another image real quick, which is something similar. And me, I'm investigating this nature of humanity, and the chaotic nature of putting many people together in a small space, whether it's inside or outside, and just showing and just trying to elicit the the feelings of being in an enclosed space, even though you're outside. And so if it comes across as chaotic, and if it comes across as uh, giving you a bit of a fright, then I've been successful in demonstrating that thought to you, because it frightens me as someone who's experienced it.
This is weird. So many people so close together, and a fight doesn't break out.
Yeah. Hmm. And
The gentleman in the center seems so happy to see you that it doesn't seem like a fight will break out.
yeah, I couldn't explain the reaction on that face, but that is one of the key features of the image. Is I think he's going with the flow. But just to give you an idea, this is Lunar New Year in Chinatown in New York,
Oh, okay.
and people are trying to get around a corner, and it literally took about 10 minutes, and taking very small choppy steps. on your way there. So
I just remember some days, in New York where it's like, I don't want to be bothered with the crowd. It's like, if I get into something like this, I'll make a conscious effort to like walk in the street or, just get out of that. But yeah, I
yes,
can see that. That's really cool.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes when I watch other photographers work in the street, if I have to pass them and they're working, it makes me smile. So, he might be another photographer or someone who's
Yeah,
interested in.
yeah. He might be, yeah, or he just might like being photographed. And the last one, which is sort of relationship to telling our own stories, and so trying to make the connection or trying to uh, make the relationship as to would anyone who is non-black tell or say or photograph this person who is a spoken word artist espousing words of Afrocentrism uh, display this image in any way, shape, or form possibly different? Yes. Can we be exact to what they would, how they would do this? I don't know. These are all aspects of visual acuity that I subscribe to, which forced me that when I was there, depending on the situation I was in, to focus to photograph this person in this way, because the way I was positioned and the way this person was positioned forced me to photograph in only a couple of ways, which was shooting from down up because he was on a small stage.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, why the choice of having somebody basically reading poetry, Afro poetry, with his head in the clouds, literally, visually. Well, I mean, you could have backed off and, telephoto to get more of the eye line, but I like that okay, you just said why you shot it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I mean, most photographers, or at least some, I still have a conscious effort not to be in anybody's way, even though I'm taking a photograph of someone when they're in public. And there were people seated down in seats that were watching him. And so I was walking around, and I didn't want to be too much of a nuisance to those people.
Okay. Okay.
All right. That's all I got, guys.
Coolness. All right. Next up, we have Mr. Skinner. What have you got? Excuse me. Well, tell us a story, Mr. Skinner. Tell us a story.
Well, as you'd mentioned earlier, we had a lot of discussion about telling our stories offline. Offline, we had this conversation about what are our stories. And a lot of young Black photographers are talking about having the ability to cover their stories, meaning our stories as Black photographers. And what's interesting to me is that we went through an entire summer, maybe 2 summers, of Black Lives Matter protests, demonstrations, awareness for the last 2 years. And these murals were painted all over the nation, particularly on the East Coast. I mean, there was one in Atlantic City and one in Philadelphia, not Philadelphia, Atlantic City. I know there was one in Washington, D.C., definitely 2 in New York. I think at one point they were going to have one in every borough. I don't know if that happened, but this is the one that was on Fulton Street in Brooklyn, in a very traditionally African-American center area of Brooklyn. And at this point, this mural no longer exists. And in terms of our story, I feel very sad about the fact that all the effort was made, and this was supposed to symbolize a lasting memorial to people who were slain. As you can see, there's Breonna Taylor up front, and I think there's
Trayvon Martin.
Trayvon Martin, and I think Eric Garner to the right, and I can't read them at this angle to all the way through. I think Amadou Diallo.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people whose names there, but if you go to this same area right now, you'll find that this painting doesn't exist. This mural doesn't exist. And
when you say doesn't exist, did they
the traffic
spray paint it out? Did they?
The traffic just wore away the paint. And when this was done, I thought it would be a lasting monument to a time of civil rights activism, part of our story, our collective story, that would be lasting for some time, and within the year it was gone. So
You should have painted it on
I,
low traffic street.
well,
I didn't know that was in the middle of the street.
most of them are in the middle of the street, if not all of them. And I think the point is that they were supposed to remind people as they traveled who these people were and what they were about, why their names are there. Mm-hmm. So, you know, as part of the collective our story that is usually told about Black experience, I felt that this was a very important photograph, far more important now than when I initially photographed. Yeah. And that's it for this particular photo.
Did you? Oh, okay. Go ahead. I was just curious if you knew anybody or asked anybody in the adjacent apartments if you could shoot down, or if you could get to a rooftop or something, get a different perspective.
No, I hadn't, but the streets aren't closed off anymore, so it's not really, it's not like I would be able to get to see the empty street or the remains of that painting that were left, because the street is is actively used at this point. It's a lot of bus traffic, cars and stuff.
No, I mean, when they put it up and it was intact, so you could get a different perspective. But okay, never mind. Go ahead.
No, I didn't go into anyone's home to do that. It was in the middle of the pandemic, so I kind of did stay away from a lot of people. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. If you go to the next photograph, this is a completely different type of photograph. And the idea of our stories isn't always limited to just the African American experience. I think a lot of people have photographs that they would consider our story. And in this particular case, these are two lacrosse players who are really good friends. And they actually asked me, hey, can you take my picture? So I sort of zoomed in really close to them with a wide angle lens, and I took their photograph. And you can see the person on the left, they were surprised at how close I got with the camera. It's a very, very wide lens. And I wanted to do that to sort of get extra excitement out of them. So in doing that, I got their enthusiasm because of their youth and the fact that they were, good friends and they had just played sports together and all of that. It was it was a great time in their life. And that's part of their story, these two individuals. And it'll be part of their story for the rest of their lives. That, on this one particular day, they played their game and they had their fun, and they were best friends at the time, or at least good friends on the team. And it's a moment in time for them. It's part of their story. Go to the final.
I like the emotional energy in it. It's like, I wasn't sure. I was surprised that you shot this. Not taking anything away from it, but it was very, very emotional. Usually very formal in your photography, Marc. And this is just like so outside the box for me, from what I see of what you shoot. And the emotion that just pops through this image is really, really, really refreshing, really powerful. Really cool.
When I was photographing a lot of sports, I did a lot of very candid things because the subjects were easy to work with. They knew they were being photographed. They were expecting to be photographed. So there's a lot, they work with you. For me, the subject works with me hand in hand to create the image, even if they're doing so unconsciously. And if you go to the third image, this would be one particular family story of one Christmas when they went and cut the Christmas tree down. And so this is another photo where, I laid down on the ground to make sure that we had the right angle to get the trees and all the family members. And it was just really, one moment that really says this is what they did one Christmas. And they may have done it Christmases after, but this is a really particular time, and it really symbolizes what their story is: mother, father, and two children.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I'm putting myself in the same sort of visual sensibilities as I look at this as when I look at mine, because I think as photographers who photograph consistently throughout our lifetime, we sort of speed through images. And I know I do that a lot. I just speed through them really quickly. And sometimes I just don't tend to think of the story to the point where I'm consciously avoiding it for whatever reasons. And so it just becomes a photograph instead of a story. And I think I've become accustomed to actually doing that. So I think for me, it's probably a good idea for me to retrain my mindset to view each image as a story on its own, whether it is intentional or not, so that I can train myself to, again, be very more conscientious about storytelling in photographs.
Well, I know we didn't really have any classes together, but from what I experienced at Pratt, the primary focus was an aesthetic one rather than a storytelling one at that time. So we really studied the aesthetics of a variety of photographers, particularly the street photographers. So we got a sense of how to photograph people who were already engaged in activities and how to photograph them. But it was really more about the aesthetics rather than necessarily communicating what the individuals were doing.
Okay, I would have figured that would have went hand in hand with aesthetics would have incorporated storytelling.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would, but I mean, if you talk about someone like a Helen Levitt,
Yeah.
they would talk about Helen Levitt and how lyrical the hands were in terms of the children at play, but given that the children were at play, there was no real investigation as to, well, they're at play because it's after school or they're at play because it's Saturday morning or anything of that. That the story nature of that type of part of the story.
Yeah.
I kind of
I'm sorry.
agree with both of you. No, I was going to say I agree with both of you. There's the schooling was more about the aesthetic, like Robert Frank, shooting with reflections and such, as opposed to like Gordon Parks when he shot the gang member through the broken glass window. For me that's very emotional. You could feel the tension in that image, and there was definitely an emotional storytelling aspect of it that for me it's undeniable. But one thing I noticed, because I took a film class while I was at Pratt, and I almost jumped ship and went into film because just like that one semester, you're using all of the techniques and principle and lighting of photography, but then you add so many more creative theatrical, it's also in my background, theater, and you're almost forced to tell a story, and it if you can do it with, what am I trying to say? If you can condense it, what I took from it is being able to condense all of these elements into one frame, that, and then tell a story through that one frame. I think that's an interesting way of looking at photography and capturing an image for storytelling.
And in the interest of being honest about what was going on in that last photograph, I just wanted to say that I did use a fill light, a softbox fill light for that image, just so you know, it wasn't just the balance of the shadow and the sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get it.
Well, in terms of the how that image was created, I mentioned that I got down on the ground with a wide-angle lens to get the whole family in, but I also wanted to let everyone know that I did use a light to fill in where the shadows were, because the light's behind the family.
Correct. As a photographer, I was thinking that way, but I just didn't. I thought that. I was wondering, but the fact is, you accomplished the image, so it didn't matter to me, or whether or not the light was there. I thought about conscientiously the light behind them, and there were filled in front of them. So, but as any non-photographer probably wouldn't have been consciously thinking about that.
Yeah, it's so well exposed that you don't, the fill light doesn't, scream out and overpower the whole image. I mean, it does look like an ad, to be honest, but
And that was
I
my
didn't-
aim.
I'm sorry.
It was my aim to give them the best holiday photo I could possibly do.
Oh, that's mission accomplished.
Mhm.
You could have, of course, there's always something more you could have done, but I think it worked.
Mhm.
Thank you.
That where we are? Anything else?
No, I think unless you guys have anything more to say about that work, I think we're on to Greg.
Yep.
No, yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. Well, the image I picked, I had a invitation to go to one of my best friends' home country in Barbados, and he was in full vacation mode, so I kind of had to find my own fun. So I get up early in the mornings and I'm just walking around and nobody's up. It's just, I found where the ocean was and kind of, played it by ear. It's like, oh, it's over that way. So I made it to the ocean, and all these signs saying danger, danger. It's a coral island and lots of holes punched in and you can fall in. But on the way there, I passed this little, it wasn't a, like a plantation field. It was just this little side vacant lot, not much of like 15 by 15. It wasn't that big. And in it, there were some random cotton plants. So I picked one and I looked at it, like, oh, look at that. That's unusual. So I'm walking around and I get to the shoreline, and that's like the northeast, northeast shore of Barbados. And the water is very rough, and I just it kept bringing me back to, like the end of the Middle Passage. Barbados was one of the first slave trade plantation islands, and between tobacco further north, North Carolina and Virginia, all of that, and cotton. Those were the two cash crops that supported Europe and gave Africans a real hard time for several hundred years. But I kind of put the two together, and it just kind of, for me, it spoke a lot to me. The
Mhm.
jagged rocks in the water, the seas on that side of the island were very rough, very untourist-like. You didn't want to get in that water. And I'm sorry.
I love this photo. If you flop it, you could use it for a jacket wrap for a hardcover book, and call it Between a Rock and a Hard Place: The Story of Slavery in Barbados.
Interesting. What do you mean? Flip it so that the hand is the front cover and the text.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. I think I have a vertical of this, but yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Or you can use it like that, where the rock is on the cover, and then you flip over to the other side, and then you realize it's about cotton.
Realize that it's what?
It's about cotton.
Yeah.
It's about cotton. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, because the specific area that you photograph it isn't as important as the imagery that you've created.
Yeah. Well, which actually brings me to a very good point. If you're not aware of the Middle Passage, and of course a lot of people are not, and the relationship to cotton, a lot of people may not know that relationship to cotton. What is it?
Wait, are we getting into critical race theory? I don't know.
Well, we're
Go ahead.
getting into the history of America and the history of the Americas and the history of
Passage.
all these other countries as well. So the idea is that, right, so it's because I'm trying to put myself in the place of someone who doesn't know about either or, and what the image means if you don't have either or, right? And what do you think of if you don't have? Can you put yourself out of that way and not think of the Middle Passage, not think of the cotton and what it means? Is it easy, or is it hard or difficult to remove that equation from your head so you can get a perspective of this image without the history being put into it?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Yeah.
Well, I
If
think
you didn't know the significance of the cotton or the African slave trade, and how many died in what was called the Middle Passage between Africa and here. Then,
this
would
would
just be a
Yeah, that's why I said a book
Just do
jacket would have copy on it, kind of
Right,
lead.
right,
It's very
Right.
it's very illustrative of that experience rather than immediacy for those who don't know. Although
don't know.
everyone should.
right. So in essence, the story means something. The photograph can tell a story for those who have the ability to understand the story, and the photograph doesn't have a story, or it makes up its own story based on the mindset of the people who don't know the actual meaning of the image itself.
Right. Use it. Not use it in the United States. I said Caribbean, but you're absolutely right. United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it kind of operates on a lot of levels. It could just
Yeah.
be a pretty picture with the sky and the sea and this nondescript plant. But if you know what that plant is,
Yeah.
and you know what ocean that is,
Yes.
and what direction you're looking,
Yes.
then the layers are like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay, all right, there's
Yeah.
something else going on.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes you ask questions if you care to
Yeah.
find out.
If you care to ask questions and find out. Yep. Absolutely. Good. Great
Yeah.
shot. Love it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. It was just weird, sometimes I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sometimes you really, really, really have to get in tune with yourself and listen to that little voice that calls you over and says, "Oh, shoot that! Look over there!" And sure enough, there'll be something over there that'll be like, "Oh my goodness!" So take some snaps and then you kind of put two and two together. And I mean, there were a number of ways I could have gone, which I did because I followed different paths to get to the ocean. But that morning, I passed by this little patch, and why would there be a little cotton bush? I'm like, oh, what is that? Then you get closer, and yeah, take one with you. It's like, why would I do that? But I did, And so that's the way that goes. All right, I'll leave that point. Storytelling. Photography is a great medium. It can do so much at so many different levels. All I got to just keep shooting, have fun with it. If you want to use expensive cameras, go on use expensive cameras. If you want to use a cheapo camera, go on use a cheapo camera. Just keep shooting. Find your voice, your visual voice, and have fun with it. That's all I got to say. You got anything, Mark? Got anything, Ken?
No, I think you covered it.
All right.
Yeah. I can't add anything right now.
All right. Well, then, thank you for joining us on our 100th episode of Three Black Pratt Grads. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave us a comment. And again, please subscribe, ring that bell, let us know you like what you see, tell a friend. And we will be exploring a new format in the coming weeks. So tune in, don't miss that. We'll have guest speakers. Once we get them all lined up, we have our line producer working that as we are the line producer as we speak. And thanks for joining us. See you next time.